Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, my favorite episode of the year, the goal setting edition. Peter, how's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, I can't complain. I guess this is exciting. I hope that we figure out what I'm going to do with my life in this episode, so we'll see.
Okay, look, we don't have that kind of time or qualifications.
Set goals for this episode. But yeah, we're going to do this. We've done this many times before. We didn't listen to our past episodes, so we will rehash much of what we said in the past, and we'll probably add in a bit some new spice. But if you did want to go back to those past episodes, I will link a few of those in the show notes. They're all good. Molly does write the same article every New Year's. Now, what year are you on for Canadian Cycling Magazine?
I was going to say, yeah, much like we do this podcast every year, I have written the Canadian Cycling Magazine goal-setting article. I believe this might be either my 9th or 10th year.
10th year anniversary. If it's the, let's say the 9th, because if it's the 10th, you need to do some sort of like goals across the years or something like that.
Yeah, I can just phone it in for the 10th. It's like the top 10 goal-setting tips from the last decade of writing articles about goal-setting.
Sort of retrospective.
Very meta. But I mean, here's the thing though, like we joke about the fact that I've written this, but the truth is I love writing this article. I get so excited about writing it. And for me, like the fun part is I start thinking about it in June because like it's due in September. So, I'm working on these articles for a few months. So every year, like I've already started thinking about this months in advance and trying to kind of figure out, how do you put a new spin on this pretty known concept. Mm-hmm. And I think every year, like my goal about goals is to speak to someone who maybe hasn't necessarily like found their type of goal setting or like read an article that spoke to them. So I'm always trying to kind of think of like a different hook to it. So yeah, I think every time we do this episode, we are kind of putting a bit of a new spin, a new spice to it. And frankly, like we started this podcast, I feel like lately I've been hearing podcasters talk about how long they've been podcasting, and I keep being like, we started this back in 2016, early 2016.
Okay.
And we were so young.
Okay.
We were so young.
Yeah. Younger, for sure.
Yeah. So I think, 2016, I wasn't 30 yet. So I do also think like our goal setting has evolved over the years. We've, our friends have gotten older. We've gotten older. We've seen, what it's like to be a master's athlete more than maybe when we were back in our like early 30s, late 20s, and we were still very much like in that elite mindset. Now we understand that, you have a dog, a kid, a car, a house, a life, and we're still trying to make goals sort of with our athletic prowess in mind fit into that construct.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all fair. I think it evolves across the years, whether it's, you're giving advice as a cycling coach or a journalist, and then also personally, right? I think we know that these different areas of life will come and go and be more important some years than others. So it is why we like the framework that we use, which we'll discuss a couple different frameworks today. We'll discuss a bit more on why coming up here. We're going to go through common mistakes. And then we're also maybe going to get to a couple of case studies if we do a good job on this outline, and sort of like, okay, I'm the person I'm not racing anymore. We have a lot of athletes we work with who are now getting older or just have decided they're done with racing or whatever the situation is. But I said to Molly, all of these people, we kept going through the different athletes we work with, and they all have something, an event. They don't call it a race, but it's an event. They have a challenge. They have a trip. Maybe they have all three of those things in the next year. And then under all of that, there's this values that we might call this, or these long-term goals of health, longevity, whatever, the dancing with the grandkid, the whatever. There's these things in the future that essentially are a goal. They are an event. They are in some ways time bound. So we'll talk a bit towards those people, and then also the more, the people that know they're going to world championships, and then we have the people who know are without a goal, like myself, maybe in some ways.
Oh boy.
So kicking it off, why set goals? Like, I guess if you said you've written the same article and people keep coming back to try and find a new system, like, is it that the goal setting isn't a thing, or like, what do you think the issue is with, like, why do we even need to do this?
I think it's very much a thing. That's why every year there's desire to have this article again. I mean, I believe it was neuroscientist Dr. Scott Fry we had on the podcast a while ago back in the summer. He kind of gave me the idea for this year's article for Canadian Cycling Magazine. Make sure you pick up the upcoming issue. But he pointed out we're the only species, animal, mammal, whatever you want to, we're the only thing that has this like long-term thinking capability and the capability to set goals. So really setting goals is kind of what makes us human. Whether, we're looking at the Maslow hierarchy of need and the goal is just to have food and shelter and all of that, or we're all the way up at the self-actualization part of that pyramid. Goal setting is just kind of part of the human experience, I guess, is like the very overarching why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you would never go past, like I'm looking at our little dog here, and he's again gotten a shoe, and it's like he's just driven by these sensations that he has that like this smell is going to keep him safe, but he has no plans for this afternoon, right? He's just sort of like waiting to see what happens, like where will he be taken, right?
Just watching the world go by.
So nothing miraculous is going to come out of the miniature dachshund world as far as long-term objectives.
He actually has like an LTAD somewhere hidden in his room.
Yeah. So I think that's it, right? So I think that's like, if I always think about the Alice in Wonderland thing. I think it's the Cheshire Cat says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot of people that's sort of the situation, right? Like, and probably you could argue a lot of us are like that. Like, you see the right thing on Instagram or the right commercial, or someone phones you today and randomly, like, everything's random in some ways, right? Like someone, emails Molly today and says, I have this article I want you to write, and all of a sudden you're writing a book about something else. Some of this stuff is random, right? But what we believe is that you sort of have this rough heading if we're on a journey, and we're saying, okay, our best bet right now is we want to go here. We want to write this book. We want to do this race, this type of race. I like bike racing. I like the situations that it puts me in. I like the little bit of nerves. I like the adventures and the travel. So we have these values, and I'm going to move in that direction. And between here and there's going to be diversions for other things. But what we believe is that that preparation we'll put in over the short term, this month, the next couple months, are going to prepare me for that type of thing, the things that I think I want to do in the future, and that those events along the way are going to be enjoyable and things that we like, right? And that move us towards that long term. Now, I think the reason that this is important to sort of set these, like, what is the rough direction I'm going to set off on in this, rather than like our dog, where it's just all different directions based on random things it sees.
Mainly shoes.
I'm going to walk in this direction of my goal so that I'm well positioned when these opportunities come up. When Molly gets the article invite or the race comes across that seems interesting to her, she has been training and she's ready so that she can sign up for the race and be ready for it in, say, 8 weeks or however long. Ideally, we'd have more time, but you're doing the preparation now so that you can do that. And then that's moving towards this like bigger value system of ultra running and health and whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what's maybe shifted for us a lot in the last couple of years. And you've always put it as the 2-decade goal, but we've actually kind of shifted the way we're talking about it, where instead of saying like the 2-decade goal, we're actually talking more about like the values instead of a specific 2-decade goal. Because I think a lot of people can't conceptualize. I certainly can't conceptualize 20 years, but I can conceptualize the values that I have. And I think that has been a better framework for me because I'm a little less like one specific race oriented right now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, knowing our values being, we literally have the Consummate Athlete Podcast. I think we said in episode 1 that our goal is to be able to jump into all different types of events. So
yeah, and that's, people sometimes don't know what consummate means, or they think it means consummate. So we at Valentine's Day, we always have our sexy episodes. Because it can mean two different things. It's one of those words. But the consummate athlete, this is usually, you'll see this in obituaries. So I actually have Google alerts. And so I get a lot of obituaries in my email. And it's usually like Sally was the consummate athlete. She played basketball and coached this and was a professional, golf player in her.
Go Sally.
But was also a sportsman or had good sportsmanship or was a team player. Like usually the consummate athlete is like a well-rounded athlete in that they play a variety of sports, but also that they're a good person and have, usually that's what you see is that this person was just like a good person. So that's a lot of our motivation for that. So that in itself is like a values-based thing. And I was saying to Molly that some of this 2 decades or values, you could actually go down the path of like the writing your eulogy type situation. Like, what do you want people to say when I get the Google alert down the road? I'll be sad. But what will it say, right? Like what
you better make sure consummate athlete's in it if you want Peter to see it. Just
that's true. You need to put that in every eulogy. Is that a eulogy or obituary?
Obituary.
Yeah. What is someone going to say in the eulogy, I guess, is the idea.
Is it going to be weird if ours says consummate athlete though? Like, yeah.
Cliche. So that's that. So yeah, the value stuff can get a little morbid, but it doesn't have to. It can also just be the sort of values or whatever. Pick if the Olympic year or you're working on this with Misha, you have this 1,000 day goal for the Olympics.
Yeah, and we'll have a short episode on that. But yes, my one author at Strong Girl Publishing, Misha Powell, she and I she wrote Sprinting Through Setbacks. I was the writer on the project with her last year. And we decided, because we're 1,000 days out from the LA 2028 Olympics, that's going to be sort of the culmination of her career, is this fight to make that like one more Olympic team before she kind of retires. So we're going to be following along with that journey kind of with Strong Girl Publishing and as Misha's friend. And it occurred to us that it would be really fun to bring people along for it and have everyone set their own 1,000-day challenge, whether it's sport related, whether it's, personal. I said my LA 2028 challenge is actually getting Strong Girl Publishing to be my main thing. Obviously, we'll keep going at the Consummate Athlete and the Consummate Athlete podcast, but Strong Girl Publishing being like my primary job. And
they can always buy us out. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, Strong Girl Publishing acquires the Consummate Athlete podcast.
Well, once you're a shell corporation, you need to like buy all the sub companies and take losses and so forth. That's fantastic. I mean, there you go. You just put a goal. And I think that's pointing to, I do like to do the goal setting where it is a little bit more, there's a family element, there's a career element. But this year I'm trying to focus myself back down to doing with the athletes I work on the athletics. But you always have to have that, like, you're having a baby this year, or like,
whoa, just to be clear, if anyone just heard that.
But like, there's times of life. There's the hustle type of career. We have a few athletes who are in the hustle, like they've gotten to that, like they are the CEO or they are the whatever. It's the time to hustle, like, and it's a good thing. They're excited for work. So we want to remember, as much as we talk that cycling or running is the be all and end all, there are these phases in life where that other stuff is sort of on the back burner, and maybe you aren't even goal setting for that. You are focused on the career side, but you still can use these goal setting principles and should, right? I think these are things that when we talk about sport going across life and all these things, your work ethic, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, some of these mental attributes or skills like goal setting could certainly be used, right? So you have goal directed behavior. You're walking in a direction for an extended period of time so you get to a destination.
For sure. And I think it's always worth thinking about all the other stuff on your plate. Like we're big fans of the athletic goal, but we also are very aware that the other goals can very quickly consume the athletic goal. So it's important to know like what is on the docket with life, family, etc. Because I think very quickly you're walking in two different directions when you have the let's say the Leadville goal, but also the giant work goal. They happen to be the big conference happens to be like August 15th and Leadville is like the 10th.
Yeah. So maybe we'll go into, I had another good story here, but I'll try and fit it in later. So we're saying like, what are good goals? And good goals are ones that I love. Dan John, we'll probably mention Dan John a bunch. He has he calls it his goal attainment course. So you can check that out. I'll put it in the show notes. But he says like one of his intake questions is he asks the person, are you okay if this is seamless? Like, what if it were seamless or something like that? And so what that question means to me is like, rather than rushing, are you okay if we sort of step towards this goal in a linear fashion? So just not, so for a lot of people, it's actually like, rather than Leadville this year, like what if we did There's a bunch of Leadville series races. You can even go to Leadville. And I've done this very well with a couple athletes, and it works really nicely. It's not guaranteed. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Nothing at Leadville is guaranteed. But if you went and did a 50 miler this year, and then next year you did the 100 miler, for most people, that is fantastic. That's a 2 years goal, and it gives you space. And similarly, Molly said, like, well, you're also going through a big restructuring at work, and maybe you're having a baby this year. Maybe it's not the year for the full 100 miler. Not that you can't do it. Most of the people listening to this, most of the people we work with can definitely pull it off. They can make it all. They can have it all.
They can have it all.
But what if it were seamless? Right? Like, what if you just gave yourself a couple years to do fun stuff? All these races are fun. Even if they're 50 miles, they're still fun. Even if they're 50K, geez, even if they're like 20 miles, they're probably fun. So build out some of these. We'll talk about the framework to build towards these, but that would be the idea, is that like good goals give you that space or give you that slack or are seamless. So I would say that's like a one element. Is there anything else I guess we could talk towards SMART? Is that as far as like what are goals, what are good goals?
Well, you can't help but mention SMART goals when you're talking about goal frameworks.
We wrote it down because we usually really bumble this. So we've learned from our past mistakes. We've done a review of our past thing. Do you want to read out what SMART goals are?
Only because you're going to read it wrong.
Yes.
Yes. So SMART goals, SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Frankly, I find this a very annoying construct because I feel like some of them are just repeating themselves in order to shove themselves into this acronym.
Right.
But
so you can say, oh, they're smart.
Well, like specific and relevant, measurable and time-bound, like even attainable and relevant. Like, well, these are all kind of getting at the same thing.
Yeah. So I think, yes. Does it matter? Probably not. But I think you see the mistakes that people make in these where they're not saying what they want. So again, the Alice in Wonderland, any road will get you there. If you just are like, fit, I want to be fit. Okay, well,
or even I would say this is more relevant to people that are listening to this. You say, I want to do whatever race. So let's just keep using Leadville because we have like the run and the ride on that. So whenever I say Leadville, I feel like it works for both of us.
Yeah. Well, and any of the shorter durations.
Like,
sure.
I want to do Leadville. Okay, so that's sort of specific. Measurable, it's a yes, no. Attainable, I'm assuming if you say you want to do Leadville, we'll say it's attainable. It's relevant, sure. Time bound, yes, like we have a time for it. But wanting to do Leadville is very different than like wanting to go sub 12 in Leadville, wanting to podium at Leadville. You know, so I think a lot of the time people kind of don't get specific enough. And I think this is where my SMART goal problem comes in, is like doing Leadville is technically a SMART goal, but you're still kind of missing some elements. Well, like what actually is success?
Well, you could say that like to do Leadville, you actually do have to finish under 12 hours.
So under 10 or under 9 or
but
whatever.
I would say where SMART might help here is that the relevant piece is that like, is this aligned? And I do see, so there's attainable and relevant. And I would say for most people, that's probably where like, just do Leadville because everyone's doing it. It's a bucket list. Peter and Molly seem to only talk about Leadville.
Yeah. Apologies for that.
Well, we'll add a new race example in a second. But I think is it aligned with your values? I see a lot of like, road athletes or like purist mountain bike athletes look at Leadville. Maybe they've seen the great coverage that they do with Lifetime and they follow some of the athletes. And so they're like, I'm going to go do this bucket list thing. It looks really hard. It is hard. It is a great experience, but it's not for everyone. Like you have the option to also, I always say, go do Breck Epic, which is a race we love. It's the hardest event. I guarantee you that event is like the hardest thing. You can argue with me, but if you look at it on paper, it's pretty terrifying. So there's other things, and it's like a mountain bike race with single track. It's many days long. The value is pretty good versus even something like Leadville, especially once you start factoring in qualification and that sort of stuff. So there's a million events in the world that are mountain bike events. There's also tons of road events. You could go to Europe. You could do tons of like these things that go from across the mountains and Tour de France, whatever you're into, right? But you want to make sure that it's aligned. And so I do see a lot of people sign up for this, they Unbound, any of the bucket list stuff, especially because it's such a FOMO. Like everyone's doing Leadville. It gets so exciting. And now you see it on Lifetime. It's not for everyone, right? So you could go and watch. We watched it. It was fun. We enjoyed watching it. I don't know that. Yeah. And so there's that. And then what was the other one? I said relevant, attainable. there are some people that like something like a Leadville 100 is going to be super tight. And like, if you need help mathing that out, like that's something that I can help people with. And I'm trying to be more firm with people when I'm like, this is going to be like really tight for you. And that's just so it's
well, and that's whether you're finishing or you have like, you've definitely had some people where they had the like 10-hour or 9-hour time goal.
Yeah, the 9 hour is very hard.
Yeah. So you've had to have that tough conversation of like, okay, that if that's your goal, that's unlikely to happen.
Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people would have to have a lot of runway to like even get close to it, and it's like often tight to the wire. And I'm speaking towards masters people, 50s, 60s, or sorry, 40s, 50s, 60s, with family, with whatever, right? Like without like unlimited resources, who weren't professional athletes in their youth. Like it's hard. Some people, there's genetics, there's history there, and it's not as big a deal. And again, like this is something that's pretty mathematical, but that doesn't mean that you can't train and go through the goal setting process. It just means that maybe you go enjoy the 50 miler, which is actually on paper a harder race as far as the climbing that you accumulate in the 50 miles at Leadville. There's so many races in the world, right? And so you just might look at something else that's attainable, and this might be attainable this year. This could be your 1,000-year goal might be go and accumulate enough experience and fitness over 3-4 years that then it is on the table that you can finish Leadville in 9 hours. But this is where I want to do it today, and it's like, well, that's like a really for you or just period, this is a pretty big goal. So it's trying to find that one that is attainable and relevant for you when we talk about values, when we talk about your abilities and your bandwidth for sport, for training, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
So those are good goals.
There you go. Okay, should we talk about the framework for how to actually get to these goals? And it's funny because now this year alone, I've done, I think, 6 different goal setting articles for different places.
Okay.
And I've done different takes on all of them.
Okay.
And ultimately, they all boil down to the same, but I do find different ways of looking at them just hit different. So it's funny, you actually mentioned the goal setting pyramid yesterday when we were talking about this episode and getting ready for it. And I said, I just did an article for USADA's youth sport, Arm True Sport, talking to one of their Paralympians about his goal setting, and he does the pyramid. And for me, that clicked. Like, I loved that concept. And it was like kind of a fresh way that I hadn't thought about in a while. But then you hear it, and I don't think you had quite the same, like, you didn't have a problem with it, but you didn't have the same, light bulb moment of like, ooh, I like this. I'm gonna do this.
Mm-hmm. No, I like a linear line. That's what I like.
So I do think it's going to depend from person to person which way of doing this goal setting hits. But the premises are all the same, right? Like, your linear thing is the exact same as the goal setting or the goal setting pyramid for the most part, just like minor variations.
Yeah, and if you Google Consummate Athlete and free tools, or you go to our website and look at free tools, and I'll link this in the show notes. I got a lot of things I got to link. We do have setting short and long-term athletic goals. We have a race day planner as well. There's lots of free stuff here. So
you're like, wow, we have too much free stuff. That's right. ConsummateAthlete.com for too many freebies.
Yeah, that's right. So it is there. The commonality, I think, is that you're sort of saying, like, there's a short-term goal. So you could say these are like weekly goals or 2 weeks goals. Then there's going to be a medium term, and that's going to be maybe monthly or 2 months or whatever. And then you're going to have longer term. And some even break it down into like day, week, month, year. And then maybe years, plural, 4 years, 1,000 day, 2 decades. So you can see how like most of them go from like now to the goal. We have to connect. I like the linear line, but the pyramid sort of is like building up towards that peak, the peak goal, the dream goal.
Yeah. And I would say where professional athletes, and again, I interview a ton of them, where they kind of actually the piece that they miss that we think is super important is actually the beyond the 4-year, like that top goal. Beyond that is like the values, the 2 decades, because when you're a professional athlete, like, this is why we can't always listen to professional athletes and apply exactly what they do to the, I use average with air quotes, but like to the normal person's life, to the average person's life, because to be an Olympic athlete, to be a professional athlete, you aren't thinking about the long term. Like, you're very specifically not thinking about your long-term athletic career. You're thinking about the short time that you can be a professional athlete. So this actually, and sorry, I'm going a little tangential here, but like this came out during the Tour de France Femmes when everyone started talking about the Pauline Ferrand-Prévost's weight loss and all of that. And it kind of comes up with like, well, are we concerned about the long-term health of athletes, professional athletes, or are we concerned about the results this year? Or are they concerned about it rather? And those two things do not always align. In fact, I'd say in professional sport, they rarely align. So this is why you don't hear professional athletes talk a ton about their like values and the very long-term stuff, but it's stuff that we should be thinking about as average people who want to be, pretty strong and healthy for as long as possible.
Well, and maybe it's a tough one. I think you maybe wouldn't see that athlete, like, I guess they maybe, like, if you ask anyone, like,
I'm not trying to say that athletes don't have values, for the record.
Well, or is our health and longevity part of their values? And probably no one's going to be like, no, I don't like health. but I think that person would have to, like, if you broke it down, and I don't know how you would do that, but you would be like, well, right now you're definitely like steering the boat towards like performance or external gratification or monetary reward or career or whatever, right? I think that's how that would look. And then you probably do lose. You see it in the road peloton a lot where it's like, no, this is nuts. Like people are crashing all over the place. Like I can't do this anymore. And I think that's where you see that like relevance or alignment come out of a thing, is where someone gets to the point, maybe it's because they have kids or they're getting older or whatever, right? Like they just have this thing where it's like, this isn't worth it anymore. The what I'm on isn't aligned. And so I do think that it's not that elite athletes don't have values, but I think it's where like there's a shift in values or something becomes more important. There's a paradigm shift where, again, like kids would do that or different things where you just realize that you're not invincible, right? Which comes with age and experience.
Yeah, which is like the career ender there. I think like to be in the career, your top of your pyramid is like the Olympics, the World Championships, the whatever, not like the North Star of health and longevity. But we like the North Star of the values, the kind of overarching principles.
Yeah, and those get nebulous. When I think about them, I think about you're choosing an event, and this is one of our situations where you aren't sure what to do in the next year, or you're trying to pick from tons of races. You want to do every race next year, and you're trying to pick what one will I do this year or in the next 2 years. And so what I try and look at is, well, is it important to have like community and friends and like, do you do the sport because you like doing stuff with your friends? We have a bunch of people who go on boys or women's trips or whatever we call these things. They will travel to races with friends or training, riding buddies, at least. Maybe they're not even their friends. And so that would be like a value, is like, that's something that's important. Or maybe it's like travel and adventure. That would be another one. So when you're picking races, if you've already done, we'll say Leadville, and your thing is like adventure and new and novel situations and wilderness and stuff like that, it's like, well, that's not really, you've already done it. So it's not really adventurous anymore. Right? You've already conquered that beast. Now you have to go somewhere else. So maybe you go to the Rift in Iceland because it's out in the middle of nowhere and has all this scenery and it's a bucket list race. So that would be more aligned with the adventurous or however you would word your values, right? There's these lists of values. I don't know if there's linked in that one document, but if you look up like lists of values, you can certainly find something like that. But what else? There would be like environmental. You have like a value around that. So that would help you choose races. So that's where I see this as like choosing the race. And then when it is aligned, they say like, what was the thing about like, if it looks like grit, it's fit or something like that? That sort of came out of stuff in the recent years where everyone was talking about grit, but it actually maybe isn't as much grit as it's like a fit. So that person just like, that's their zone and they just do it. So the other thing that I look for is like, what do you just do? Like, what are you drawn to do in the day? And for some people, it's just it might not be biking, but it might be another sport or another activity that just they would do for free, right? Like, what is the thing that you would do just any day if you just woke up and you had no responsibility? Like, what would you go and do?
Should also point out that we're talking mainly to masters athletes, so it's also what would you pay a lot of money to do?
Yeah, right.
Back to the Leadville example, that ain't cheap.
Yeah, and maybe it's like what's the most numerous type of bike you have in your garage or something, right? Like
yeah.
you have 3 mountain bikes and only 1 road bike, but then you're signing up for a road event or something. Maybe there's something there. So that would be that. So we were on frameworks. And so we have sort of like, I don't think we need to go deep into ours or anything like that. But what we sort of said is that you sort of like are going to draw this out on a piece of paper, usually, where it's sort of like long-term, the dream goal, maybe there's values over top of that. And then coming back down to sort of like the daily habits or at least the like weekly goals you have for yourself.
So your base of the pyramid should be these sort of daily, weekly things that you're doing. We'll call them process goals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I actually argued with you last night that I actually think the values are the layer below that on the pyramid, because I think they actually really do set the foundation. So however you want to visualize that is totally fine.
Yeah. And so for some, where do we want to go for that? Do we want to go to the common mistakes, or do we want to go a little deeper on framework, do you think?
Well, maybe we should just give a quick example of framework. Like, I don't know if you want to say Leadville or if we want to pick another race, because let's talk about Breck Epic, because I like that one.
Okay. So let's say that next year, I've always dreamed of doing Breck Epic, and then I get terrified every time we go there, and I say I can't possibly do it. So let's say we're going to do that. So the short-term goals would be, okay, like when can I sign up for this? Can I even still sign up for it? So that would be like things in the week I need to check off to get done. But the other things I think about is like someone who would, let's say my goal is I want to be in the top 3 in Breck Epic. And that could be age group, whatever. So this is bold. So then what would someone who does that, what would their week look like? What would they do in a week, right? Or this time of year, what would they do? So those are some of the weekly or the monthly things we could look at. The short term, we could say like these are recurring habits. So it could be something like maybe I haven't been very consistent in my training the last couple of years. And maybe now I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit like 90% of the workouts in my week or something like that. I'm going to like,
well, even looking at Bracken being like, okay, this is very technical single track. So, okay, I need to shift more of my workouts need to be on technical single track, because that's what I'm going to be racing. We know it's
two workouts in the week are mountain bike.
Yeah, we know it's at altitude. So, okay, are we going to do another altitude tent? Are you going to keep working with your isocapnic?
That's right. There's been a lot of people using our referral code for the isocapnic Breathe Way Better. So put a little shout out there. But that would be something. Maybe it is. So it's like I want to do number of sessions on my isocapnic Breathe Way Better device. So I'm going to do that 5 times a week. And I'm going to maybe book a consultation with Luke over at Breathe Way Better to just sort of like make sure I'm doing a good job and like maybe see if there's other ideas or things I need to do as I get ready for altitude. So sometimes appointments are like in the next 2 weeks, the 2 months, even the medium term, like when am I going to schedule in places to get feedback, appointments, skill instruction would be another one, right? Like I'm going to book in for a 3-pack. So these are things that we can check off a lot of times. And sometimes that's like a nice goal, is like you can check it off. And that's what we're looking for in these. What's that thing I'm like, this is like a process goal versus like the outcome goal. The outcome goals are harder to control. We want process goals. These are our short and medium term goals, or our weekly and our monthly goals. A lot of those are more checklisty, where you can like, if you do it, it's done. It doesn't matter that like, Keegan Swenson shows up and beats me at Breck Epic. Well,
please don't.
Then my podium goal was tough, right?
Yeah, I do think with a note on the process goal is like some of them are going to be recurring, like those like daily, are you training every day or like most days or whatever. In those cases, I use the app Todoist. I know I've talked about that ad nauseum, but what I like about it is every day I have training on there and I can check it off. So I get to check it off, but then it's a recurring task. So it populates to the next day. Mm-hmm. So it lets me like hit the process goal of like checking it off and like crossing it off the list. But at the same time, it is going to keep coming up and up and up.
And we've talked about a good training program doesn't usually have training per se every day. Now, you could get around this. A lot of the athletes we all have a walking yoga day on Monday, because a lot of people don't do well with off days. They really like to have that like every day, sort of like Molly. 7 days a week, there's like movement there, and you like your checklist. It's easier to build out a recurring daily task. So it could be as simple as like, yeah, you just do your yoga on the off day and period. Like just don't make it hot yoga. Don't be weird about secret training and stuff like that. Or the other one we've used in the past is like you comment in your training log, your training peaks for your coach every day, which is also sort of weird. But like your coach does like to hear from you every day. Like I'm feeling great on the recovery day. Like I got in a nap today. Like I love the athletes that tell me like, yeah, I napped today and it was amazing, right? We've gotten a few people this year have gotten really into napping. And it was because I started putting napping in as a workout, like it was sort of nap or yoga or walk or like I think I do or maybe, right? You can do all 3 if you like. But some people are just like, wow, really? I can just nap for 15 minutes and log this. And I think it's been great. Those people have had good years. So the napping for the win.
I like it. I do want to actually skip to the common situations before I think we can end with just some rapid fire mistakes. But I think because we're on the framework, let's talk about the situations that people get in. So we have a clear, we have one of the common situations is we have the clear point B. We have Breck Epic podium 2026 on the, that's our top of the pyramid, the end of our line, however we're looking at it.
It's the yearly goal or the 2-year goal. And a lot of people would come to me for coaching and they would say, I need coaching because I signed up for Breck Epic. Point B, done. We got it. I envy you because I can't currently get myself to that point. So then these people, they need help trying to fill in all those gaps of okay, we're going to build you out a training plan. We're going to say, okay, you're going to set the goal of doing the workouts. That's a great thing to do. You're going to maybe plan the workouts out. And then along the way, we have these metrics. The medium term goals might be let's look back at your season last year and maybe we put a little bit of a performance goal, we could call this, or a outcome goal but a practice goal, however you want to call these, but medium goals where we're saying, okay, Molly, last year, your best 5K pace was whatever it was. And this year we want that to be about 10% faster because we know the speed's so important in these ultra races. We want to try and get your speed up a little bit. Maybe we're going to say there's a practice race in there, a C priority race where we're going to try something. Maybe you're getting a sauna and you're going to incorporate some heat training, and maybe there's a consultation with our friend Dr. Chung over there, and this is to see how we should integrate this sauna into your training. So you can see how you're starting to build out some medium-term goals, the number of sessions you're getting done, the people you're going to consult with and get feedback from, and all of these things stepping towards, while also providing little medium, stepping towards your big goal, Breck Epic, 100-miler race, whatever, while also giving you little checkpoints along the way to say, yes, I'm on track. I'm still on the line. I'm still, if we looked at a map, you're still on the highlighted route, or you got sick, you got a little injury, work got busy. We're way over here on the left of the line. Okay, we're going to check back in. How do we get back onto this track, right? And we know it's going to be a squiggly line. You're going to have you're going to get lost here and there, but that would be the idea for those people. So with the clear point B people, it's definitely where are we now so that we know where we are on the map, and then drawing out that line so that we can get there.
Perfect. Okay. Flip side, you have some people who are very clear on where they are now. So they have a very clear point A, but a pretty nebulous point B. So this might even be, I'd say this is where you and I tend to fall the most often, where we have our values are generally pretty organized, but then we just kind of don't necessarily have a strong point B. Right.
So we talked with that. We said, okay, well, if you have values, things I do like adventure and some novel stuff, but I also do pretty well. I've been racing the same Hardwood Hills Canada Cup and, Dan's Eager Beaver here locally. So I do sort of like these recurring things to go and test myself against that course again and see how I do in the race. So it's sort of weird like that. But I think that would be more of community, and I really like where I grew up and where we live. So there's also just I love racing in these local areas, right? So there is that. But yeah, without having a clear point B, I think that what we talked about was there's a couple ways to solve it. You could just look at all the races. Maybe for me, it would be trying to get some more friend trips would be probably a good thing that would align with things in my life where I probably could do more of that.
It's funny. That's actually what I was about to say is I have been very I don't know what next year looks like. I feel like everyone thinks that I have some kind of secret master plan. I do not. But then, a friend of mine is oh, here's this 450K bikepacking route that's pretty close to us and goes to a place that we've done bike trips to before. And I was oh, okay, that sounds really good. And then it's okay, well, that means I actually need to ride more. And I was well, I have been thinking about returning to cyclocross for the 10th year in a row. So, maybe that at least gives me something to go for, whether or not I put other races on the calendar. Right. But I like having something.
And so what I like the line, if you can picture this, you have the where you are now. So this might be your test results, your fitness results, your limiters. So I know what I'm not great at, and I am working away. I'm the thing, what Molly's saying is we both train pretty consistently. We have a pretty good record of that. We stay pretty fit. So it's sort of like, as long as you can keep assessing where you are, this is what point A is, where am I now? And I know that because I train and because I do some sort of assessment, then you can know. And so I know that like strength and like power are often where I get beat, where I get limited, both in running and really in biking. So I can work away. So I'm doing a big strength block here right now. That's exciting to me. It's interesting to me. And then we have these values in the thing. So exploration, community, connecting with people. These are things that really why I've raced this long. So I sort of have a linear line because I can draw between those, and I'm just waiting for events to come into my my schedule, I guess, that align with that, and I'm pretty good with that. And I think that's like ultimately with the goal setting is like, are you happy with how the last year went? And if not, this is where that year-end reflection can come to be helpful. Is, well, we need to change it if you're not super psyched on how the year went. But if you were psyched on how the year went, you can stay on the path and on the line, and even if the races haven't come up, like, again, I'm confident that there'll be a hardwood race and there'll be the Mansfield gravel race will happen next year. And if there's not, like, I can also ask myself, like, if I don't get signed up for a Leadville-esque race, am I okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good with that. Like, that's okay.
I think that's a really good point because, yeah, we definitely work with a lot of athletes who, like, do just want to, like, continue to do better. And, yeah, they have some of the local stuff they do. They have some adventure stuff that they do. And the goal isn't necessarily to, like, add a new big scary race or big scary goal. It's just to gradually keep improving at the stuff they're already doing. Like, honestly, because we're all going to hit that point, hold their progression at, like, the same place, right? Like, I know you have some clients who their goal is actually to, like, complete a race that they've done in the past, but 10, 15, 20 years ago even.
Yeah, you do get that. And you had mentioned redemption races. I don't know, is that a redemption race?
I think that's different.
Okay.
Because that's, like, not a immediate thing. So, okay, let's get into, we have, like, just a couple minutes left. Let's hit a couple common mistakes. And this is one that I was talking to Jenny Quilty, who we've had on the podcast, ultra runner coach, awesome human. She and I were talking about the idea of redemption races. And when we say that, we mean either you crossed the finish line pissed off or you didn't cross the finish line pissed off. So obviously my Leadville 2024 experience would be a big one here, right? Sprain my ankle, get halfway through. And the number of people that were like, are you going to do Leadville again? Are you going to do Leadville again? And I think I said it on last year's goal setting episode. My issue with the idea of doing Leadville again is it's not the same goal. My goal was to podium at Leadville 2024, not to do Leadville. So I didn't get that goal. That's fine. You don't get every goal that you set, which is probably the common mistake of goal setting is, like, assuming that you're actually going to get all of these goals. You're not. That's how life works. It would be weird if you got every goal. That would actually mean that you're not setting them very well or very high.
Sure.
Anyway, the point she made with the redemption race is you cross the line and you're like, oh, I need to get back and, like, redeem myself on this course. Like, that's fine and it can work. But the thing she always asks clients about is, like, do you actually want to do this race again? And that meaning, like, you come back next year, you're midway through the race and suddenly something else happens. Your gut goes, you sprain your ankle, someone faster comes along and, like, goes past you. Are you still going to be happy that you came back to try for this race again, even if it doesn't go, even if you don't redeem yourself? Because that's a very likely or not unlikely scenario, right? Like, you could have 2 bad years at a race. I could go back and still not manage to finish Leadville or finish it, but do really crappy. And
so I do think that it's like to go back and, like, there's, like, anger with, like, beating yourself or beating the world for, like, not getting it versus I love Leadville. I love preparing for those type of races. I love the whole vibe there. I'm just going to keep going back, like, who knows for how long, but, like, it's unrelated to the year before. Like, I like the idea that I'm just going to do Leadville. It's a beast. It could go any number of ways. I'm trying to, like, this is my goal, pace, and time given the training I've done, but it's somewhat unrelated to the past year. Exactly. Yeah. If it's a new goal, that's totally fine. Yeah. Or just, like, that's your thing. Like, I talk about my Hardwood Hills Canada Cup, RIP, but that's, just if that's what Leadville or these bucket lists are, but you have to remember, like, I've had horrible Hardwood Hills races, but then you go back and it's a new Hardwood Hills race. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I think the redemption race is probably one of the biggest mistakes that someone can make, but obviously there are a lot more. Maybe it's dear. It might be dear to your heart.
That one is near, but only like out of sheer like peak. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever done a redemption race. I've just been so irritated by the number of people.
Well, that's what I mean.
All so well-meaning, by the way. If you're listening to this and you've asked me, like, I so appreciate that. But like, it made me feel really guilty when people were asking me if I was going to go back to Leadville or not. I felt weird saying no because it felt like something I should be doing. But I think actually the should is probably the other kind of common mistake. I think we talked about that even with the Leadville kind of more global example. Everyone thinks they should do Leadville because they heard about this race and it's like a bucket list race. Same with like any runner thinks they should do a marathon.
Or Western states or whatever, yeah.
Regardless of, like what you actually prefer doing or want to do. So I think, so no redemption races unless you've hit the parameters as previously discussed, and avoid any goal that starts with I should do.
Okay.
What else you got?
So these are like sort of people or scenarios, I guess, right? Didn't I have scenarios in this?
Yeah, we already hit some of them.
Oh, right.
Moved them
Yeah. Okay. So they're earlier. So hopefully it's clear. Like you sort of you either don't have a goal, or you don't know where you are. You don't have a good routine. So there's sort of like these scenarios people would end up. We talked about the person who maybe isn't racing anymore is very common in our athlete pool. But we talked about there's usually events. We can start calling them events. We could call these like we have a couple of big bike packers. And these are challenging things for someone else not in the circle of people we're talking about. These could be races or like a serious ordeal that you're going alone in the wilderness for 7 days and you're riding an impressive amount of distance. These are events, and so they are worthy goals and things to get ready for. Now, is it like super time bound that like you have to be done in 7 hours and 46 minutes to get your belt buckle? No, but like I always say, you do have to be back at work at some point. So there is like a measurable like speed that does get out of this. It just might not be pushing you that you're ragged to your limits, but the goal is that you can do this thing without being pushed to your limits. Whereas many people who aren't listening to this podcast would be not even starting such a thing. They'd be ruined 10K into this event.
Which I think is the one of the pitfalls of being an endurance athlete who's like very much into the sport. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably fall into it where a lot of your friends are endurance athletes.
It's weird. I have lots of people. Yeah. Like they're surrounded by world-class genetic freaks. And so their normal is so skewed, just so skewed.
Yeah, it's funny. We have people in our neighborhood that we see on dog walks and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'll drop something in about like what we do. And they're so perplexed. And then I always feel the need to be like, oh, but it's really not that much because I'm so used to like our friends where, I do 100, someone else just did a 200.
Right. And I said normal, maybe like reasonable. Not that what anyone's doing is unreasonable, but I do think you need to put some of these things, like some of it is sort of unreasonable. And it's fine to do unreasonable things or irrational things. Nothing makes sense with like sport and cycling. These are all hobbies that most of us aren't getting paid or paid very well for. So it's not rational, it's not reasonable, but I think we do need to remember that like some of this stuff is pretty cool, that you're able to do these things. So remembering that, and I think taking pride in that, but also that you don't have to go to the next logical step in your mind is maybe not the most logical step. It doesn't always have to be 200 miles after 100 miles or another 100 miler after 100 miler or whatever, right? Like you can sort of go in a different direction or the same level or whatever, just do something slightly different. So it's scenario, mistake, sort of the same thing. Like we're sort of saying this is a type of person and these are common things. So the like head in the sand is what I had, which is sort of a mean way to write this. But so if you're someone who's constantly caught off guard, like your equipment isn't ready, the race pulled up, you missed the deadline to register for the race. These are people that like probably that I love Dan John's 2 weeks or 2 months, but like I really like 2 weeks. I like drawing it. This is a fortnight for those in the UK, I think, or those Taylor Swift fans who I assume know what a fortnight means now. So you just look 2 weeks down the path, and this is the medium terms goals. what is coming? So I have a camp coming in a little over 2 weeks. And so I need like a bike that's like pretty polished and isn't going to like limit me because I'm coaching. So I can't be the limiter. And then I also need to be able to prepare to train to ride with the athletes at this camp. So there's a bit of a fitness requirement. I don't have to do. I can always sit and draft. So it's not that big of a deal. But you also can't come in and get knee pain or back pain. Like there's a pretty big performance, even on the coaching side of things, to be there.
The best thing I ever did for my cycling was when we coached a camp, like this would be like almost 10 years ago, I realized I had to start eating on the bike because I couldn't be the one who bonked because I'm the coach. Like you can't be the one who's tired or grumpy or unprepared.
So what could you do? You could put in your big order for your gels and your bars and whatever, if that's what you need to fuel it. You could get the bike store ordering the bike or the bike maintained or whatever the thing is, find the tires that you need to have.
Start eating on the bike.
Practicing eating, training your gut a little bit so you don't eat all your new fancy gels and then find out that you need to stop on the side of the road during the camp and do this. So that's the idea, right? And then it would also be looking out. What I usually do every Sunday is I look at the next 2 weeks. So that's a continuously rolling 2 weeks. It keeps moving ahead by a week every week. It's amazing how that happens. But then I say, okay, given my values, given my 2-year goals, given things that I'm going to do, what do I need to get done in these next 2 weeks? What are little steps I can take that are going to edge in that direction? This is that line or that map analogy is so nice, and where I don't really like the pyramids as much, but where the line is like, I just want to step in the direction of this goal. And so what do I need to do? Well, this gets into periodization of training. So like we start laying the base, we start doing the strength training, we start cross training gradually. So that we are prepared for January, February, March, where the volume is higher, the need to cross train is higher, the strength requirements should be like solidified. You shouldn't be getting sore from strength. You should just sort of like be doing that. So this is where we can start planning out the year. And this is something where a coach definitely helps, or a training plan can definitely help. But those are things that we would be thinking about, and where you're stepping in the direction of July is nationals. August is, what's another race that's in August? I'm trying to think of other races that are in August that aren't the race that we've mentioned too many times already.
We'll just keep with Breck Epic.
Steamboat's there, right? Yeah, I don't know why we're sending people only to Colorado now. This is paid for by the Tourism Board of Colorado.
Yeah, right? So Tourism Board of Colorado does want to get in touch. I hear there's another state that's really going for the outdoor recreation title.
Oh, right.
So if Colorado wants to...
take that back. So the head in the sand person just always caught off guard. And then so it's like, oh, I didn't train today because I didn't have my bike on the trainer. Well, it's November. Like you should have your bike on the trainer. I didn't have my fenders. It was raining out and I didn't know where my raincoat was. Well, it's November. You should know where your raincoats and your fenders are. I didn't know I was supposed to have fenders. Well, you're training for this race, and you're planning to train outside. You should know what fenders are. So there's that type of thing where the head in the sand person is just sort of like, they know it's coming. They're super nervous. And they just are continuously caught off guard. And so it's days missed to training. And it's again, training isn't complex. You just need to keep showing up. But if you can't show up and do a good job, even like we say 80% is a passing grade, it doesn't have to be a great job, but you need to pedal the bike if the bike is the goal. And so that leads me into our next sort of scenario person is like the person who's like way too much into goal setting and maybe tracking. And what's the weird, what do people do when they have all the watches and the gizmos? They're like self quantification. What was the word?
Quantification of self, I think, is like one of the things they call it.
Yeah, those people.
Where you have just like 18 spreadsheets and like tracking the goal almost becomes the goal.
And it's just too complex. Like I think this process is worthwhile, but I don't think it needs to be overdone, and it doesn't need to be all consuming. Like on Sunday, I do the thing and then I sort of have like my calendar and then I review. They do say that you want to keep checking in on the goal, like keep reminding yourself that Steamboat Classic is coming down the thing, right? The 24 hours of summer solstice. Well, that's the biggest 24-hour, I think, is what Canadians say, at least here close to Toronto. It's coming. You're going to do it solo, tag team, whatever. So just keep reminding yourself that like that's coming. What can I do to get ready? Like registration opens this week. There's one obvious thing. And then what do we want to do for training? So there's that. But I think this like complicated thing is like, it sort of relates to that Dan John, what if it were seamless? Like maybe you have too many things. So you're like, have all these different sports and things you have to do, all these training interventions. Maybe there's, like you say, that you're quantifying you have to measure this and test this. And we had someone, this is a common person, that's why these are like scenarios, but the like so many tests, and it's like, this is your,
as the starting point, even like they couldn't
they're trying
start the training until you check
they're putting it off.
The DEXA, the VO2, the lactate, and
so
XYZ
I've learned over
blood
the years,
test.
when someone comes for like, they're kicking the tires on coaching or something, and they mention like 6 other professionals of different types, all great people and doing good things. But as a coach, it's like, well, I could see you have your massage therapist, or you have maybe the person you do like once a year or whatever, maybe you go for some sort of assessment. But when it's all these people, it's like you have way too many voices, and you're just like really trying to get that point A, but then the point B, the like big goal isn't, they're maybe too varied on that. And that's what you often will see is it's just like 17 different types of sports, and they don't really, but then that same person will be like, oh, I really want to get sub 9 hour at Leadville. And you're sort of like, well, that's like a big thing. You're going to have to focus. You can't walk in all these directions, right? So that person sometimes gets too complex where they're like trying to like up my VO2 max, get my lactate, get this, my body composition. And there's always a weight loss goal in that as well. So that's the thing, is where you want to try and be like, what is the goal for this year? Next year you can do something different, but try and narrow that person down. If there's too much complexity, too many things, too many goals, that would definitely be a thing that like good pure goal setting and trying to stay focused, if that's the goal, is to get to the next level. You're also allowed to just do whatever you want. Some people are fit and really capable and really like they're maybe into all the different communities, and that's their fitness regime. But that's different than saying like, I've done this race and I want to go faster. What's involved in that? And sometimes it's like, well, you're going to almost have to narrow down that for this year, for this block. But that would be that type of person. The other one would be sort of like not getting feedback, help, or accountability. And this could look like it's not necessarily a sales pitch for coaching or consultation, but it could be.
I was going to say, but it's not a sales pitch for
But they say you should tell your spouse or your family about your goals.
For the love of God, we will say this every year. I think we like really harped on it last year. So like, if you're the person who's listening to this thinking, oh no, that's me, go back and listen to our last November episode on goals. You gotta talk about this with the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And the stakeholders, I mean your close family. So spouse, kids, parents, if you're a caregiver, your boss, if you have that kind of relationship, like anyone who's going to need to be in your corner for the race, or whose life you're potentially disrupting so you can be in the race. Not saying that in a bad way, just like, I've talked about this a lot, like doing 100-miler is a huge strain on Peter. Mm-hmm. He will be very like happy to help and like does not want me to not do races because of it, but like it's a big push on you. Like
it is. Yeah. And I would say that like plays in. We have a few different couples and stuff that we work with, and certainly we coach one side of the couples in some cases, sometimes both. But when you have a spouse who's also into sport, I think this it complicates it in some ways. Sometimes there's alignment and you're doing the same events, and that's sort of what you do together. But yeah, just trying to figure out how this is going to fit into the family schedule, the work schedule, which sounds obvious, but we also joke about the races in August in Colorado, and they're very big things in people's lives, but they forget that they have a 2-week work conference or 2-week family vacation in that really the 6 weeks before that event should not have a lot of disruption. Again, bikers bike, and when you're preparing for a big thing, those last 6 weeks, 6-8 weeks are the specific thing, and you'd rather them be nice and smooth, and then the vacation maybe comes after, which is a big order, a big request on the family and work, but that would be the way you would ideally set that up. So if it can't be done, that's when your family always does vacation. That's when the biggest work conference is. Well, it might just not be Leadville, right? You might choose not to do it, because the thing I wanted to say earlier, I talked about the Alice in Wonderland quote I loved. The other one, it's a story, and it's either like a farmer or a monk usually, and it's like you're asking for directions, and they say, oh, I wouldn't go there from here, or you like can't get there from here, and so you're like on the wrong side of the mountain. And so like you could, I guess, do that, but it's like again, what if it was seamless? What if it was a smooth thing? Why would you choose that rocky road when you could have a nice smooth one going in a different, a slightly different race? So a race that happens in July. There's a lot of races that happen in July that look a lot like those races in August in Colorado. So that would be the thing, is like the mistake would be choosing a goal that you just can't do a great job on. Now, some people will be okay with that. They don't care. Okay, my challenge is that I have to take 2 weeks off before Leadville, and maybe it'll be fine. I've seen it go okay. But if the goal is to do really well and really push your limits, you could pick a different event and just do a great job on that one. There's lots of these bucket list races and these ones with qualifications and everything else. So you can certainly do that. So those are common mistakes. I got my little story in about the monk or the farmer or whatever. I really butchered it. Anything else there as far as goal setting and sort of moving forward into this year?
Like stakeholders, do you want to just like quickly maybe talk about the accountability side of things, or like the actual like help goal setting? Because I think like one thing you're very good at, whether someone is a client or is just kind of coming to you, is like talking through the like, our usual 2 tenets. Can you prepare for the goal you've set? Do you actually want to? So I think if anyone's kind of thinking about, you listen to this, you're like, okay, it is Breck Epic. You've sold me on Breck Epic. And we're like, we didn't really mean to. We like Breck Epic. Do it. Yep. But no, not sponsored, not an ad. But it can sometimes be very helpful to talk it over with someone who understands what that race is going to take and can look at your point A and say, okay, to get to point B, this is sort of what you're going to need to work on. So we will include links in the show notes for if anyone wants to chat about that. And, I think we're both bad about talking about accountability because both of us sort of are more in the, we train to train. Like racing is sort of icing on the cake, but we would train whether or not we had, my training has not changed in the last year, even though like I haven't raced since May. I haven't stopped training or trained like less because I don't have a race, or like I'm not less inclined to go out and run. But I realize that's a weird, like that's not a necessarily like normal thing. A lot of people need to have something on the calendar or someone kind of checking on them. So if you are someone who does thrive with accountability, like this is where coaching can actually really help, because a lot of the time the key stakeholders in your life, the spouse, kids, parents, boss, etc., don't really want to hear about your day-to-day.
Yeah, they want to know when it's happening and what it means for their day-to-day. But yeah, they're not going to listen to too much about it. They'll probably cheer you on a little bit. And so long as you're happy with how it, goes, however it goes, they're probably good. But like, yeah, their bigger concern is like, you're not taking the kids to soccer practice.
I was going to say, frankly, like they're actually like more on the accountability for all the other parts of your life. So you actually kind of need someone outside of it to be on the accountability for the sport side of your life in a lot of cases. So again, definitely feel free to check that out or get in touch. Shall we say happy goal setting? Let us know over on consummateathlete.com. We have an anonymous form. We have @consummateathlete on Instagram. We would love to hear your goals for the coming season. We'd love to hear any goal mishaps that you've had in the past, blockages. If there's any other goal-specific questions you want us to answer, we can definitely do another episode on this because, as we said in the beginning, I freaking love talking about it. All right, happy goal setting, happy training, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.